But yeah, I mean, for 6 months, I kept thinking about what my life would have been if I had been world champion instead of world runner-up, and trying to imagine in my head what my life would have been, how people would see me, etc. Until you realize that, well, it doesn't really matter in the end.
Welcome to the Iron Mind podcast. What separates the elite from the merely good? Follow me as I explore the makeup of elite athletes. What helps them come through when the pressure is greatest and the stakes the highest? Hi, my name is Corey. Today's guest is Victor Crouin. Victor played Division I squash at Harvard, where he played as the number 1 seed on the varsity team for 4 years, led the team to national titles, and posted a 13-1 record in his senior year. He's won the individual college squash national tournament not just once, but twice. In 2022, after graduation, he turned full-time on the PSA World Tour and reached the top 10 in the world rankings. He's currently ranked number 1 in France, and his highest world ranking is number 7. Today we talk about what mental toughness means to him, how he built it, and what young athletes can learn from his journey. Enjoy. Hi, Victor. Let me just start off by saying I am a huge fan. I don't have a subscription to Squash TV, but if I see a Victor Crouin highlight, I always make sure I've got to watch it. So thank you so much for making it to the podcast today. I'm excited to talk to you about the mental side of squash.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thanks for those kind words. Looking forward to having a good conversation about the mental side of the game.
Could you first start sharing how you started playing squash? What led you to choose to play college squash at Harvard? And then after college, what motivated you to want to pursue squash full time?
Yeah, so I mean, long story short, I started playing squash when I was about 5, 6 years old. I was already a tennis player at the time. But my dad was a squash player. He was a passionate amateur player. And so I decided I was also going to pick up squash, and I did both squash and tennis and squash until I was about 10 years old, and then decided to really focus on squash. My dad's always been my main coach since then. Obviously, I've been working with other coaches throughout my junior and college careers because I had to leave home. So I spent my high school years at the French National Center, which is an hour away from home, and worked with the national coaches there. School was also a big part of my life when I was younger. Parents always made sure I had some good grades. The deal was that if I didn't have good grades, then I wouldn't be able to play European junior tournaments anymore. So I wouldn't be able to travel all around Europe. So that kind of just was a strong incentive for me to be disciplined in the classroom.
Yeah.
And then I got passionate about academics as well. So when I turned 17, 18, and I was about to graduate from high school, I didn't want to turn professional straight away. So um, had a few opportunities to go to the United States for college. I first looked at the options in France. It was hard to do both squash and academics at the high level, so I decided to take on the US opportunities to go to Penn and Harvard, and in the end decided to go to Harvard. Mostly because the team environment was a bit more international. There's a few kids that I knew from the European Junior circuit that I was friends with already, so I felt more at home. And then obviously Thierry Lancourt was around, being the head coach of MIT. So for my parents, it was great to have a French family around me in case of emergency. And yeah, I mean, Mike Way is a legend of the game, and I knew he had a lot to give me as well. And the team was very, very competitive when I came in, so I knew I would have some very competitive teammates I would be able to train with. But yeah, that's how I ended up in college in the US. And so when I arrived in the US, I already knew that I wanted to turn professional full time after college. So I tried during those 4 years to get my ranking up as much as possible. Fun fact, my goal when I got into college as a freshman was to maintain my top 100 level, or at least ranking, because I didn't know how many tournaments I'd be able to compete in, PSA tournaments, because of the college rules and the college squash season and everything. I
It
just
just get
felt,
busy.
yeah. And so, and I did pretty well in my first year, especially every summer I would go to Australia, New Zealand, went to Brazil, Argentina to play all the summer tournaments and did very well and managed to get my ranking up. And so I ended up graduated in the top 20 in the world, which was a big boost, going
Yeah.
full time into the professional circuit.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I mean, must have been tough having to balance both the academics at Harvard and also trying to play in not only just in the season, but you're traveling around playing PSA tournaments too.
Yeah, I mean, it's about balancing different goals. So sometimes you'll focus more on the academics because you're getting towards a reading period and you have to get ready for your exams. But sometimes the college squash season, so between November and March, where you pretty much 100% focus on that and academics, and then the rest of the time I would try and spend as much. I would try and get as many opportunities to play on the pro tour. Also decided to play smaller events so that every time I would travel, I would be able to play two, three, four back-to-back matches instead of traveling, playing a match, then going home.
Yeah.
It just made more
Yeah.
sense to travel for a few matches rather than trying to go to bigger ones and then maybe losing first round, second round. And then, I mean, for me, it wasn't so much of a change from high school. That was already pretty used in high school. Used to going to tournaments pretty much every weekend. So having to study while on the plane or in the hotel room in between my matches. It was actually a good balance for me because I felt like, when you're at tournaments and you're waiting for your match, you can kind of
Yeah.
feel the stress building on. And with my academics, I could kind of just switch off the squash board for a few hours during the day, waiting for my match, and just focus on the academics. And then 2, 3 hours before my match, I would stop, rest, and just get ready for the match. And I was just excited to go out there and compete. Because I had been studying for maybe 2, depending on the day, so it was kind of a relief sometimes to just go out there and have fun. I wasn't playing full time, so the pressure wasn't the same as when you're a full time professional player. You train twice a day, and so your tournaments have more importance to you because they pretty much the outcomes of the work you put in every day. While when I was in college, well, if the squash doesn't go well, then I can just focus a bit more on the
Focus on academic.
academics. If the academics don't go too well, I can focus on the squash.
Yeah.
And obviously balancing both was just the best way to be good at both, to be honest. I didn't struggle that much. The only part that was a bit tough, and it relates to just making choices and aligning yourself with your goals, is the social part of being on campus. I mean, to this day, I regret not having done a few team social events. Like I missed a few banquets when all the teams and parents were very nice for that, to celebrate our season. I missed a few of them because I went on and played a few tournaments. And looking back, I feel like, well, maybe I could have prioritized that banquet over that tournament. Obviously, social life on campus, try and strike a balance and be a bit mindful about going out on weekends. When I would go out,
Yeah.
it would only be once a once per weekend, not twice or three times. And then it would
Yeah.
be like when I come back for tournaments, which means I would be far away from the next events. But it's just things to be mindful of. And once you align with yourself with your goals, then usually those aren't sacrifices, but they're really just choices you make.
Yeah. I know earlier you mentioned about the kind of different pressure you faced when you turned full-time pro versus when you were at Harvard. And I just wanted to focus a little more on that and how that transition kind of affected you. What What new pressures were you facing? And were there any mental or even tactical adjustments you had to make when you started training full time?
Well, just going back a few years before even, I feel like I felt a lot of pressure during my whole junior career. And that's how I feel sometimes when I talk to juniors about managing stress. It's not easy at all, and it might take years. I always repeat that anytime I would play the British Junior Open until probably under 17, I would make the round of 16 or the quarters, and then play above my ranking, and
Yeah.
the stress would always um take a chunk out of my game. Really, it would take me a game or two to get into my rhythm, and I would just not be able to express myself to the best of my abilities. Um, and I would be frustrated about that part, and just caring so much about that match, that result, that I would just not be able to play and not be able to focus on the means to get to the win. I would just be a bit afraid, a bit too excited sometimes, felt a bit too much tension, and you could tell me whatever you want. I felt that pressure, and that pressure wasn't really positive. And it just took me a lot of repetition, a lot of just going out there, compete, trying to,
Exposure.
yeah, exposure, put into words what's happening in my body, to kind of just relax and have fun on the squash court, and take more risk as well. Because sometimes when you stress, you just end up playing conservative. Like, you don't want to play those risky shots that you sometimes play when you're training with your friends. And if you win the match, or if you lose the match or the game, doesn't really matter, you know. And yeah, it took me until, it's probably a big moment, a big breakthrough for me was the World Junior Championship in New Zealand. It was a big trip for me because it was the first time I was going overseas outside Europe. 16-hour trip from Doha to Auckland direct, plus a 6-7 hour flight from France to Doha.
Yeah.
And I was like, how is that possible? How can you stay in the flight for so long? And I got to New Zealand, and I remember being so amazed by the environment I was competing in, and having so much fun and putting so much work into preparation, and not feeling that stress at all, at least not in a negative way. It was more just excitement, you know? That stress can either be fear and being negative, or excitement and helping you perform to your best. And I ended up beating one of the favorite, Mohammed Al Sarraj. Back then, he was, I think, the number one seed, and I beat him in the semis.
Wow.
And then so got to the final of the World Championship for the first time. And then it hit me
Nervous.
up again, and yeah, caught me up. And I spent a horrible night not being able to sleep because I was so excited about playing the next day. And I played a good match, ended up losing in the fifth, but that match kind of haunted me for a while. I'd say 6 months, until I played Marwan Tariq again at the British Open, and this time lost in 3 games. But yeah, I mean, for 6 months, I kept thinking about what my life would have been if I had been world champion instead of world runner up, you know, and trying to
Yeah.
imagine in my head what my life would have been, how people would see me, etc., etc. Until you realize that, well, it doesn't really matter in the end. Uh, it was a fun time. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but as long as you give your best, that's all you can do. And once you grow up, you can see throughout the years that you'll have some wins and you'll have some losses. It's gonna happen both ways, and you just have to just give your best. And sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. But I think I couldn't get away with that stress because I tied my squash results with my identity so much, and that I got in court, and it was kind of survival mode. You know, if I lost, then it would be a hit to my identity of how people would see me, how my dad, coach would look at me. Same with the family, you know. And they never put pressure on me. It was really just me putting pressure on
Self-imposed.
myself or thinking that. But it's really when I realized that, well, first of all, I'm doing that for my own because I want to compete and I'm working hard every day training, and so I just want to get the results I deserve when I compete. Um, and trying not to tie your results too much to your identity. So then when I got to college, I had different goals as well. I wanted to be number one in the team. I wanted to win all my matches for for my team on the national team championship. I wanted to win individuals as well, so I had ambitious goals on top of the professional goals. But those were at some point I realized that it was just something that would drive me to train. Something that would motivate me every day to wake up and go do some gym sessions at 7:30 a.m. before going to class at 9. Those like goals that you set for yourself shouldn't be something you fear, but something that motivates you for the time frame that you train for that goal. Yeah, and then when I graduated from college and I moved in onto the professional tour full time because I was already pretty much on the professional tour. I felt like I didn't have that pressure anymore because I had my degree, so I'm not set up for later on in my life. Like I'll still have to work hard to find a job once I decide to retire from professional circuit. But I'm in a better state than if I had turned
Just
professional
played
full
squash.
time at 18 years old, and so I can now just invest myself in my training and try and get the best results I can. It's more when I got into the top eight for the first time that it caught me again, and I tried and I started to be tie myself too much to my results and my willingness to stay in the top eight at any cost. And the cost was that I stopped looking long term and stuff. Instead, I was just thinking short term about I need to get that win. I need to win this one, etc. And so I stopped thinking about how can I improve. I started to play a bit more conservative. I lost a bit of my um, game identity, my identity as a player on the squash court, and
Yeah.
obviously lost a bit of motivation as a result. And it's only when I looked at the big picture again that I got motivated again about just trying to build up my game and trying to get back into that top eight. I mean, I haven't achieved that goal yet, but I feel like I'm getting closer to that, and I feel like my game is evolving, which is exciting. And yeah, that's all you can ask for. Then as well, just the results will just be the consequences of the work that you put in. And obviously, there's like um, mental drills and mental work that you can do behind the scenes, and then when you compete, and I'm sure we'll talk more in depth about this. At the end of the day, you just have to do the work and then go out there, try your best, and if you win, then you see uh what what worked well, and you try and strengthen those areas, and you try and improve your weaknesses. And if you lose, then you try and work on your weaknesses, and you try and strengthen your strengths. So it's kind of the same thing whether you win or lose.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of wanted to go back a little bit again, back to your time at Harvard.
Yeah.
So the head coach at Harvard, Coach Mike Way,
Yeah.
he was telling me how he had a big rivalry with the Penn number one, Andrew Douglas.
Yeah.
He said that during the season, I think you lost to him twice, both in 5-set matches.
Yeah.
And then when college nationals came around, you were able to come back from a 2-love deficit and ultimately beat him 3-2, 12-10 in the fifth game.
Yeah.
So leading up to that match, what was kind of going through your mind? Was there anything you had to change from like your previous matches when you played against him? And when you were 2-love down, what were you kind of thinking to yourself? And did you have to make any mental adjustments?
Well, first of all, Andrew and have been playing against each other for a long time, even before college, and pretty much all of our matches went to five. So it's always been a close encounter. But yeah, in college, I mean, Andrew is one of the best fighter on court, and especially when he's down, he's the worst you can play against because he's playing even better when he's down.
Yeah.
And so it always made my life very hard on court to kind of just finish the games, finish the match, and I ended up going to five a few times when I could have won before if I had kept my discipline and gave a bit more on one or two points. But that time, yeah, it was so we got to nationals, we got to the national final quite comfortably, I'd say. We did well to qualify for the final without losing too much energy. Personally, I mean, it's more of a team things because everyone is as a different
To pull their weight.
different level of training as well. Like I would train for college squash, but I would also train for a professional tour, so I would train a bit more than some of my teammates, and so it was important for us to be fresh going into that final. And obviously, we were playing at Penn as well, so adds some. I mean, the home environment in Penn was very hostile, and when we played them. Um, But yeah, I mean, just I felt I mean you've got two options when you're down. Either you self-sabotage yourself, so you just shift into self-destruction mode, so you get angry at yourself. You get frustrated um um for not being successful, for not being able to hit your length well. So you'll start arguing with the ref, you'll start arguing with your coach or your teammates, you'll start arguing with yourself, or you can just just get quiet, get into your head, and try and focus on what you need. Well, usually it's the basics, but what you can do to kind of get back in, getting the control of the game back to. I mean, getting back the control of the game. So, I mean, it's really shifting. If you're stressed and things aren't going well, it might be just lengthen the rally, just making sure you stay in the rallies for longer,
Yeah.
and then you'll get a rhythm, and then the puzzle will kind of appear again, and you'll be able to gain some momentum. That's what Ali Farag used to do super well, and that's one of the things that Mike taught us is like when things aren't going well, you just lengthen the rallies and you just try and stay in there. But as long as you can, until you can find a rhythm or you can find some momentum, you can get back on the tee, volleying. It's usually one of my strengths. So usually, you know your identity as a player. Mike's always asking you to script. I play my best when, and answer the question. I play my best when. You try and add one, two, or three bullet points, and so the goal when things aren't going well is to kind of get back to that mindset of I play my best when, and try and do that because that's usually what's going to help you get back on track. And yeah, I mean, you can't focus on winning or losing. You have to focus on what will get you there, at least what will get you closer to win. Doesn't mean you'll win, but at least you'll try. Maybe you'll have a window of opportunity, and then that's when you really need to give your full engagement on the squash court and take it. Andrew opened the door at some point in the third game, and I came back. But I feel like it's not something that I did during that match. It's something that I do every day when I train. It's like every day when I train and I do practice games or I play condition games, if I'm down on the scoreboard, a lot of my sparring partners or just players in general might give up. You're like, I'm 3, 4 points down, I'm done for that game, I'll focus on the next one. Well, if you start doing that when you train, you'll do that as well when you compete. And if it's the third game and you 2-love down, oh, it's over. Just you might be able to talk about to your coaches about technical, tactical aspects, but it's just about how you conduct yourself on the squash court. Sometimes it's easier to give up because you can tell yourself, well, I give up, so he didn't really win that. Well, whereas if you give your very best until the very end, then that means that your opponent was better than you on that day. And you need to accept that sometimes your opponent might be better on that day. It doesn't mean that you're worth nothing or you're worth less than him. It's just that he was better on that day on the squash court, right? But
Yeah.
you can see that behavior quite often of players giving up before the end because you're kind of protecting your own ego, you know?
Yeah.
So I'd say, yeah, it's just how you conduct yourself when you train, because how you train is how you're going to compete. And sometimes competing is tougher because of the pressure you can feel sometimes. It brings the worst behavior out of yourself. So for me, one of my weaknesses sometimes is to get caught with refereeing discussions and
Yeah.
kind of lose track um, of my game plan and the simple cues that I use to kind of play my best squash. And so yeah, I need to be careful about not discussing too much the decision of the ref and just move on. But I'd say yeah, about the 2-love down deficit. Again, this is something that I've trained. It's not even about training; it's about your behavior and again how you conduct yourself.
Yeah. I really like that because there was during when I was talking to Coach Mike, he did mention there's this quote he said that I really liked. It's how you lose matters.
Yeah,
I think that sticks with me because you not even during a match, even just during practice, it's about building these habits.
yeah.
And these habits you build on court really translate to match play and how you perform during your matches.
Definitely, and I mean, how you lose matters because if you lose just giving up, there's not much you can take out from that game, right? If you lose giving your very best, then you'll have a good picture of what you need to work on for the next few weeks of training until your next competition, so that you can be a better player.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
for sure.
one quote that I like is "Win or learn." So you're not really losing, you're learning from your losses. Obviously, you prefer doing win and learn, but sometimes you just have to be okay with win or learn.
Yeah. I know you said earlier that you worked with a sports psychologist or you currently are working with one.
Yeah.
Is there anything specific like journaling, visualization, or routines that you do to train your mental toughness?
Yeah.
And for you, is there kind of a way you measure how you're improving
Yeah.
mentally?
Well, when I got into top eight next season, so 23-24 was pretty rough. I had some tough losses and lost a bit of my identity as a player and lost the motivation as well. And so I reached out to Jesse Engelbrecht from Sport Mind. He's a former professional squash player turned squash coach and then a sports psychologist. And he's got his own app called Sport Mind. And I've worked with him, first of all, to get another perspective on sports psychology, on getting excited about learning again about all the tools that sports psychology can give us today, thanks to science. So for me, it was about expanding that toolkit of of the mental game so that I could master them a bit more and then use them when I feel like I need them in competition. So it was all about with Jesse nowadays. We talk a lot about tools and things that you can work on to get into the flow. So flow is usually your general performance, and then
Yeah.
tools and mental tools that you can use to try and come in the clutch. So try and win the end games when it's pressure is very high, and you just have to be really good in a matter of a few minutes. And then we feel like those are two different things: flow and come in the clutch. At least it requires different skills. Flow just requires, it's more about how you conduct yourself on a daily basis, how you prepare for your matches, what will help you get into that performance zone, that's flow. And then coming clutch is the behavior that you'll bring on money time when it really matters and you have to deliver, right? And those are the things that you're gonna have to. Clutch is more about exposure. You just have to get out there and do the work. With Mike, we did a lot of scripting, so scripting on a notebook, and this is great because this is really just the first step, like trying to put into words quotes or phrases that you want to remind yourself when you're on court. But then once you close that book, mental work isn't done, it's just the start. Then you have to do it on the squash court under pressure, because it's easy to give you a talk right now while I'm sitting down and we're having a discussion. It's much more difficult when when your heart is beating at like 160 to 180, right? So you really have to train it on the squash court when you train, so that you can do it in competition later on. So, I mean, tools that we use, first of all, I talk a lot with my coaches and with different mentors to give them a sense of how I feel right now. If you don't have somebody you can talk to, or you don't feel confident enough you can talk to, you can just journal, do some journaling by yourself. Yeah, notebook, do some scripting that works. I used to do that a lot when I was in college. Nowadays, like to talk to my coaches and to different people that help me on an everyday basis to share in which mental state I am right now before the match, for example. But then, yeah, for example, I'm gonna leave in 2 weeks to China for the World Games. Yeah. I hadn't competed for, well, I would not have competed for about 6, 7, 8 weeks. So for me, it's important to do some visualization to kind of get back into that competitive spirit, and then try while I train to get into that mental state, so that once I get there, I'm not lost because it's the beginning of the season and we haven't competed for a while. I'll be excited because it's been a while and I've been training hard. So at some point, I want to go out there and compete because training is great, but at some point it's just too much if you don't have a competition. And my rehearsing the scenarios during visualization will help me once I'm there to kind of be like, in some moments, okay, this is what I need to do, and this is what's gonna help me get closer to winning that match. Another thing that I work on is to really build my identity as a squash player nowadays, so that once I'm on court, um, I can really remind myself of the type of game that makes me play at my best. And if I'm or in a losing scenario, then I can remind it to myself so that I can try and get back into winning. I use breathing a lot just as a way to manage my stress, and also for physical purposes. I feel like when you breathe well, you feel you feel better, you feel more calm, you feel more clear in your head. The breathing is a big one for me. Then and then yeah, measuring your mental progress is hard because it's hard to put numbers into it. Yeah. I'd say sometimes, so there are two components. One is, can you see that behavior happening? If that's a negative behavior, can you see that, or can you say that behavior is happening fewer and fewer times from one tournament to the next? And then is the outcome positive? For example, for me, I've been working a lot on my end games, trying to bring more engagement instead of relaxing when I get to 10 to game ball or match ball. Yeah. I'm not thinking that I'll win that point fairly easily because my opponent will just give up. And so you can see on the video that I'm hitting the ball harder. I'm trying harder to get back to the tee after my shot. I'm trying hard to make sure my length isn't hitting the front angles. Um,
Yeah.
but we're struggling yet to see results in terms of outcome. So do I really win the game on my first match ball, or do I need 2 or 3 match balls to win the match? So those are two results. I mean, one is very much into do I apply the protocol that we put in place, and then does it result in the good outcome? And those are two different ways to measure it. And it's important to do both, because you can't just get you can't just focus on the outcome, because sometimes, for example, when I played Diego Elias at the Grasshopper Cup, and I was 10-5 at match ball, and I lost that game in that match.
Yeah.
I analyzed the match and I felt, well, yes, I could have brought a bit more engagement, and yes, I felt a bit stressed about being so close to get one of my biggest wins on tour. But at the same time, you got to give credit to Diego, who played some incredible shots to get back to 10-0 and then win 13-11. So sometimes you lose, but you still make progress, and that's why you can't just focus on when you measure those things, especially the mental part, which takes time and a lot of rehearsing in order to get things right. And even when you get things right, it's something that you'll keep working on for the
You
rest of your
revisit
career.
it.
It's not something that is um, validated.
One and
Like, you
done.
can't validate it. Yeah.
Yeah. I know you were talking about scripting earlier.
Yeah.
Would you I don't know if this is too personal, but could you share like what you like to say to yourself, or is there a certain phrase that you really like to revisit?
Yeah, so I try and not get too fixated on some words. Um, so it's always evolving depending on where I am, what I've been working on, etc. So I'm not like a Nadal, for example, who's always going to do the same movements every time before he serves.
Yeah, same routine.
Yeah, those routines are set, but then I'm okay changing them from maybe one tournament to another, or you know my point. You get my point. It's like, I'm big believer in something that I've come across that is rugged flexibility. So having your like key compass, like knowing your non-negotiables, but then being flexible uh to perform it.
Being able
Some
to
of them,
like adapt to the
yeah,
situation.
adapt to the situation really. And I feel like that's important. Sometimes when you get too focused on routines, and then for a reason you can't do that routine, you still have to be able to perform.
Perform.
But things that I script were back then, because I script a bit less. Sometimes I script when I feel a big amount of pressure, and I feel like, I write a lot on a daily basis, just on social media as well, sharing how I felt about my tournament. Those reflection posts are also beneficial for myself, for my development as a player. So when I feel the need to, I'll script, but it's very informal. It's not like, again, it's not a routine where before every match I'll start scripting. I did that for a while, but then again, those type of things evolve, and today I don't feel that necessity, so I don't do it. But things that I would tell myself were um words that I sometimes tell myself. For example, when I get a 2 or 3 points lead, I try and I love that thing from it. I took it from F1, but the mode push, you know, or full speed, something that some F1 drivers say, or their I don't know how you call him, but the person that they have that they're talking to during the race. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, now it's time to push hard. Uh, I feel your car to the limit. And so for me, when I say mode push, it's like, okay, now is the time you need to just make the gap bigger and try to get to the finish line and win that game. It's when I feel like the momentum is on my side and I need to just keep going. Then sometimes, like at the beginning of the match, beginning of the games, I would focus on long rallies, but that had changed, and I'm not very much focused on long rallies because I feel like I need to have some flexibility. There's a big opening, and if I feel good, then I should just go for it. If you take a player like Victor, he's very much a big believer in long rallies to start the match, long rallies to start the games. Like he's not going to go short straight away. And I feel like, well, I mean, at least he doesn't have to think about a strategy. It's all put in place. He knows that for a few points, few rallies, he's just going to lengthen the rally. Same when he's down on his whole ball. You can see it against Diego Elias often. He would just blend up the rally until he can feel like he's back on the game and he volleys again. And that's when Ali becomes a threat. And when he's on the tee and he's volleying everything. And then my identity as a player is also pretty much oriented towards volleying. I feel like when I volley, that's when I play my best, and when I don't volley, that's when I'm in trouble. So volleying is one thing, but it's like, how do I get into that into that situation position of being able to volley? Well, it starts with good length, hitting, maybe sometimes trying to focus on accuracy rather than power and speed, because then if I give myself more time to get back to the tee, that gives me more time to process the information about the quality of my shot, and so to be able to anticipate the next shot. Sometimes I play. I mean, I've I've improved a lot on my cross court recently. It's been a big area of focus recently, but the length, the alley game, the length game, the alley game is really one of my favorite games. So when things aren't going well, I'll just end up just playing straight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's good start.
Yeah. Wait, I have a question about if you could go back and talk to, let's say, you right before that World Juniors finals in New Zealand, what kind of advice would you want to give him? Or even it doesn't even have to be right before the final, like let's say leading up to that tournament. What kind of techniques or practices would you want him to do? And what do you think would work and what wouldn't work?
Well, the thing is, I mean, first of all, it's a lot of discussion with yourself, with your self talk, with your inner voice. It's one of the term that Mike uses, and that inner voice is super important to control. It's like you're not going to be able to control it 100%. It's always going to be some thoughts that come in, and you're like, why am I thinking that right now? And it's just how you respond to the thoughts it's thoughts that is important, really. I mean, one thing is just to put things in perspective, and it sounds silly, but it's true. And it's easier nowadays because I'm a bit more mature, I'm an adult, I've experienced life, and I know that it's not the end of the world if you lose a match. It's not the end of the world if you don't win your tournament. I remember when I was 18 and I was playing those junior events, for me it was all that mattered.
Yeah.
So it's trying to put things in perspective,
Zooming out.
Yeah. And that helps to kind of bring the stress down a bit.
Yeah.
Trying to remind sometimes juniors will respond something like, well, sure, but if I put things in perspective, that means I don't care anymore. And that's not true. It's like trying to I mean, you can care about something for like an hour or two and then understand that there's something else afterward. I mean, life just goes on. Like, it's okay. You can also try and look at stats, see that, I mean, it's not because obviously if you've been world champion, if you're world champion, you have more chances to make it to the very top. But if you look at the top of the ranking right now, there's still players that made it without even making quarterfinal of the World Junior Championship. So it's doable.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't be um equating your World Junior result, because that's what put pressure, because you're thinking you really need to do well right now, because if I don't, then I probably don't deserve to be at the very top of the game one day. It's not true, right? It's just one tournament, um, and they're gonna be there were plenty of tournaments before, and there were plenty of tournaments of upcoming tournaments. So it's putting things in perspective, zooming out. Then it's trying to remember why you're playing squash in the first place. So trying to put enjoyment back at the center, really.
Yeah.
Why you're playing the game. And that's a big one. I feel like sometimes we get too caught into I want to be the best and I'm gonna work hard, and you forget why you're really playing squash. And that is when burnouts come in. It's more the mental health part of it, really. But it's super important. And then there's just general enjoyment, but there's also, it's usually when you're happy, you release some dopamine in your body, and usually that release of dopamine happens after the end of the match. So when you have the right outcome that you were hoping for, when you were winning,
Yeah.
it's trying to release that dopamine in the middle of your game or in the middle of your workout. So it's pleasure in the effort. It's not a pleasure because you reach your outcome. It's trying to enjoy it while you're in there. So sometimes I'll take a very basic example. You go running outside, and at some point it's getting really hard, and that's when you should tell yourself, "This is where I wanted to. This is the physical state I wanted to be in. Now I'm happy to be in that state, in that physical state, and I'm going to work hard to keep running at that pace, for example." And so you're releasing the dopamine, the pleasure in the effort, right at the middle, at the peak of the effort, when things are really hard physically, and you're thinking, okay, that's why I train. So I should be happy to be in that state. You shouldn't be thinking, oh, when is that workout done? I want to be done with that workout. And then when you're done, you're relieved, you're happy, you've done the challenge. Sure, you should be happy to have succeeded, but you should be equally proud of yourself if you fail that challenge.
Yeah. For
That's
sure.
and that is tied to how you conduct yourself on court. Whether you win or lose, doesn't matter as long as you gave your very best, and it's tied to that release of dopamine, is to give your very best in the effort, in at the peak of the effort, regardless of what the outcome is going to be, or
Yeah.
just because.
It's as if you're just trying to enjoy the challenge, really, and not looking at the outcome, enjoying the process, and knowing that the outcome won't. It's not the end of the world, right? Like you
Yeah,
said
you'll still
before.
have a good dinner with your parents
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Also, something that I've worked on is, I mean, it's a bit of Buddhism, but it's like when you win, the excitement not being too high, so that when you lose, the
Not too
frustration
low.
not being too low as well. It's trying to stay. Obviously, you don't want to stay neutral. I'm not saying like you shouldn't celebrate when you win and you shouldn't be sad when you lose, but it's trying to make sure that it isn't too big, because otherwise you just go from one
Too
extreme,
high and
from
too
one
low.
emotional, yeah, from one emotional
Yeah.
to the other one, to the other extreme.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Before we wrap up, I do have a tradition on this podcast where the previous guest leaves a question for whoever comes on next. My previous guest asks, what is one mental practice or experience on court that you've taken and applied to your personal life? Or vice versa, is there anything you've taken from your personal experiences and used it on the squash court?
That's a good one. Well, anytime I'm in a stressful environment, so last time that happened, it's a very stressful environment, I'm saying. Last time that happened was I got stopped at the US border, went into the office, so you kind of very stressed because you're thinking,
Yeah.
what did I do and what's going to happen to me? And I wasn't able to use my phone, obviously. It's to try and use the breathing to try and relax. And obviously, like, you're still getting stressed, but at least you clear your mind and you're able to think through a bit more clearly, and instead of panicking so that stress become impactful, kind of just putting things in perspective,
Yeah.
thinking about what you're gonna say, or just thinking about you've done nothing wrong, and like you're just gonna tell them what you know, or ask
Yeah.
questions. No, I mean,
Don't panic too much. Yeah.
too much, too stressed about. And the stress isn't gonna disappear, but at least, yeah, using the breathing methods uh, really help to not for that stress to disappear, but for my to be clearer about.
Yeah, like don't overthink things too much and just try to stay leveled. Yeah. Do you have a question for the next guest relating to the mental side or anything relating to that?
What can I ask? A question. It's a good one. Yeah. Um, how important do you think mental skills, I mean, the mental factors, or, and you can reframe the question if you want, but how important do you think the mental aspect is to performance?
It's a great question.
I think those
Thank you.
the answers can vary a lot.
It can be. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on today's episode, Victor. It was a pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.